Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day. I'm bringing you guys a video that I know everyone's been waiting for, a review on some of the PvP changes that are coming in Test Realm. Now I'm gonna do a whole review of where turn-based, in my opinion, falls short, doesn't fall short, does great. But right now, the focus of this video is going to be on the spells. Now, if you've already read through Test Realm, or if you even, hopped into turn-based like your boy, you might have actually seen these changes already. I think a lot of people can, resonate with going second to somebody and they just Shrike and then they just win. Like, the match will be going completely in your favor, and a couple of shadow pips later, you're dead. So what do they do to Shrike? So basically, right now, Shrike starts at 30% backlash. You can increase it above 30% backlash, and you can double reduce backlash. That's how Shrike works. So theoretically, right, especially to give you an idea of how broken this is from first, you have so many options in Shrike right now. If you're first, you can literally Shrike and then set shield, and you will not increase backlash that turn, and then you could double reduce with a spell like Ice Bird, Fire Beetle, White Rat Magician, you name it. Every school pretty much got one. And then you can hit, and you would end the whole thing with 0% backlash, even though 1, you shielded, right? And 2, you only hit twice during the 3 turns of Shrike. For most people, if you have a stun block up, Shrike is your best move if you have a Shadow Pip. It's a crazy thing that this move is so good in so many situations, especially when it gives such a game-changing advantage, like 50 pierce and 10 extra damage. So now, what's the new Shrike looking like? The new Shrike is much riskier to use. 1, you cannot double reduce. So if you do a Fire Beetle, if you do an Ice Bird, if you do a White Rat, if you use a Life Scarab, a Death Scarab, a Storm Beetle, TC, whatever example you could think of, you cannot go from 30% backlash to 10% backlash in one turn. You go from 30 to 20, 20 to 10. That's the only way. It goes in steps. And not to mention, they've also made it so the starting backlash is 40%. So what that means is that, let's say you do 3 different hits, right? Whether it's supposed to double reduce or not. If you do 3 different hits, the maximum that you can do traditionally is you can get it down to 10%. The third and final change is that now, instead of 30% being the maximum backlash you can take, not only does it start at 40 to begin with, if you do 3 things that it doesn't like, as in if you're outplayed to the point, whether it's dispelled or you're forced to shield to survive the round, it can go all the way up every time. So it can go it can start at 40, but it can go all the way up to 70. Overall, I like the direction that Shrike is taking. It should be a risky spell. It's shadow magic. The whole point of shadow magic is that there's a certain level of backlash associated with it. My issue, though, with how Shrike works right now is the fact that in turn-based anyways, I don't think, in turn-based, I think it's nearly useless. If I Shrike right now and I'm going against a balance, all they have to do is just diffuse over and over again. And I would take 40% backlash for Shriking. I'm a little scared about people who have 80 resist, 90 resist, some people, an ice can get 85 resist with 100 damage. If you can't really do much against them at all, it seems like in turn-based anyways, these nerfs are a little iffy. I think, unfortunately, again, this is where, I don't know, a lot of ideas need to be talked about here, because I think the only way you could really make the current, Test Realm Shrike work is either don't do it in turn-based and put it in to live realm, and I think people would be fine with that. Or you could make it so that there's some kind of resist cap in turn-based, because otherwise, if people have too much resist, Shrike is your only tool against it. And if you can't do anything about it because of the way Shrike got nerfed, that's also not a good thing. The other thing is, even though this is an important change to Shrike, one change that plenty of people have been asking for, and this really needs to be done, if you're in Shrike, you should not be able to gain a Shadow Pip. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that something as random as Shadow Pips can just be given to you while you're in Shrike. And that's the truth. In some ways, Shrike sucks in turn-based, but in other ways, the RNG element's just it's not gone yet. You can literally just Shrike, and you can be blessed with a Shad, and then you win. That's not good. Now, I get it. If you have 2 Shadow Pips, maybe, okay, then Shriking into the Shadow hit, that makes sense. But there's no reason why it should even be possible why when you're in Shrike, there's a possibility you can get not 1, not 2, but you can get 3 Shadow Pips. I've seen people Shrike and then literally use 3 4-pip Shadow hits And I just think that's ridiculous. I think, one, in Shrike, you should not be able to gain shadow pips, and if you do use a shadow enhanced hit in Shrike, it should be once, not 3 times, not twice. It should be once at most, and that's if you actually got the pips to begin with. My recommendation, and you'll see why I'm saying this, and I'll go really into this. I think they should test out these Shrike changes in regular PvP. I think if it wasn't turn-based, I think Shrike would be fine, except with the addition that you shouldn't be able to gain shadow pips in Shrike. I'll get more and more into why turn-based falls short in many ways for, I think, a lot of people in the community, and I think what everyone wants when it comes to PvP is a change that really, really matters, and not a change that feels half-assed or incomplete. And I think that's kind of what we get when you just combine all these things into one, like a Shrike nerf with turn-based. I think Shrike needs to be nerfed in this system, and we should test out how it feels in this system, and not just default on turn-based just yet. Now, the other spell that got changed is Fire Beetle. Now, if you guys know me, I hate this spell. I think this is one of the most atrocious spells in the history of spells. But the change is something I can't get behind. The change that they've proposed right now in Test Realm, and I'm glad that this is a thing in Test Realm. I think it's a really important time for feedback. It's just an outright ban on all Fire Beetle TCs. Now, the one saving grace, I guess, of this outright ban, I guess, is that item cards, you can still use them. So if you have a Fire Beetle pet, like this one, I guess, you can still use that. But I think anyone who PvPs knows that just one copy of a card, like, that places a lot of power on that card, and Fire Beetle's a utility card. So you should focus on how the utility is blown out of proportion. And it's not a powerful card that needs to be limited. Like, you can make the argument that Shadow Enhanced hits should be limited, like, in terms of copies. You know what I'm saying? That should be, like, a limited resource, maybe. Fire Beetle's not a limited resource. It's just the way it works right now is really flawed. Let's go over why it's flawed. 1. There are multiple versions of Fire Beetles, and therefore they can stack. So there's item card Fire Beetles. There's TC Fire Beetles that don't have a symbol on them, and then there are TC Fire Beetles that do have a symbol on them. One thing that I do like about this is that they're limiting it down to only one version of Fire Beetle ever being able to be used. But I think the version they should choose is one that can be used multiple times. As long as the traps don't stack, using multiple Fire Beetles technically will only let you break shields. That's all it really does. The real problem is when you do this Fire Beetle into this Fire Beetle, into another TC Fire Beetle, and now what you're doing is not only are you breaking shields, you have 3 different 35 traps that can easily be used. So that's a problem. So I think what they should do, 1, this is the first of many changes, is 1, just make it so you can only use 1 TC. So the item cards, maybe get rid of those from PvP, and maybe get rid of the alternative TC versions. Also, 3 potent fuel traps is a crazy amount as well. I think fighters become somewhat of a trapping school. Brimstone, FFA, you name it, they have it. Lots of trapping, fuel, you know, lots of trapping. So I get it. Maybe make it so that fire doesn't turn into like a scarab school, like other schools. Like, make their strength shine. Maybe make it 2 traps, but make it smaller. So maybe make it 10 or 10 to 20%. I think the fine number would be 15%. For 2 traps, so just change the spell to make it hit and give 2 15% traps. I feel like that way, even if you did spam Fire Beetle over and over again, you also break one of the traps you did before, right? So you'd have to really spam a lot of them to get a bunch of traps on them. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because we've already seen what happens when you just ban a spell outright instead of listening to the community's feedback on where the spell needs work. Guardian Spirit just got banned. A lot of people wanted critical not to apply to it, healing not to apply to it. They wanted copies to be limited of it. It just got banned, and now life is missing a tool compared to every other school. I don't think it's a good solution to limit schools' tools. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you should just take things out and just call it a day. That's not rebalancing. In fact, I think that's, in my opinion, that's slightly simplifying of the issue. And it seems like way too easy of a way out, and it's just gonna make a bunch of fire wizards angry. And don't get me wrong, I hate this spell. I have a I hate how unstrategic the spell feels. But the goal shouldn't be to just get rid of something that feels unstrategic. The goal should be to make it strategic. So that's my opinion. I think the Shrike changes, when combined with turn-based, make Shrike way too useless. And I'll go more into turn-based, but I think they should just roll out the way Shrike works with the change that you shouldn't be able to gain Shadow Pips and Shrike into just regular PvP, so we can test it out, you know, so we can get a feel for it, so that we can give more feedback. And I think Fire Beetle should be nerfed, not banned. I think a lot more people would like that than an outright ban, and I think that's something that most people, whether you're a Fire Wizard or not, you could agree that right now as it is, the spell is pretty anti-strategic. But yeah, man, that's my review on the 2 Test Realm spell changes. I think it's a really interesting debate that we could have on this one. I'd love to hear y'all's opinions. I'd love to hear Fire Wizards weigh in on the Fire Beetle thing. I'd love to see everyone weigh in on the Shrike changes. Do you like Shrike the way they changed it? Do you think more needs to be done on whether you can gain Shadow Pips and Shrike? And how do you think this Shrike change works in turn-based? There's a lot of questions. I look forward to reading all your feedback. Who knows, maybe y'all can change my opinion on this. This is just where I stand. This is just my opinion, obviously. But let your opinion be known in the comments below. As always, y'all, drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. There's tons of links in the description, including my Twitch, my Twitter, my Discord, my Instagram, and my Patreon. And as always, if somebody has not told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. So stay awesome. And yeah, yo.